everybody, today I'm going to be reviewing this gorgeous custom commissioned silver ribbon cincher made by Court of the Emerald Queen, or Emerald Queen Art as she's known on some of her social media. And Emerald Queen Art is run by Ursula. It's a one-woman business based in Poland. And this corset was funded by my patrons on Patreon, so thank you so much. So here's the front, the side, the back, and the other side. Because I provided my body measurements and this corset was made specifically to fit me, the measurements don't matter all that much, but for those who are curious, the center front of this corset is 13 inches. At the princess seam from under the bust to the top of the lap here is 11 inches. At the side seam here it's 10.5 inches, and in the center back it's the longest at 13.5 inches. And this corset was made to close at 22 inches in the waist. The rib cage here measures 29 inches and the high hip here measures 34 inches. As with most ribbon cinchers, this one is also pointed at the top and the bottom edges in the center front here, and it's fairly conical through the rib cage. But because this is a ribbon cincher and the horizontal ribbons that are overlapping can slightly shift a little bit, I find that it is much more lightweight than a typical standard corset with, made from all cotton with vertical panels, and it's a little bit more breezy. I find that I really enjoy wearing ribbon cinchers as the weather gets warmer, and it has like slightly more flexibility compared to a standard corset as well. Another really interesting feature about this corset is how the hips are shaped, because they actually do come out quite abruptly, and then they round down over top of my pelvis here. So it's about a mid-hip corset. It's not really a high-hip corset. My iliac crest is around there. And so I didn't know that you could achieve this type of silhouette with a ribbon cincher, but obviously Ursula has been able to figure out how to do that. So let's go to the tabletop portion of this review and I can show the other details of this corset close up. So here is the Emerald Queen Art ribbon cincher laid flat, and for the materials, the ribbon cincher is made out of ribbon. Oh my gosh, what a surprise! And for the strength fabric, where you see the center front, the side seam, and the center back where the bones are, she used black herringbone couture. This is what the label looks like for the Court of the Emerald Queen. So you can see that the E in emerald takes on the silhouette of this little queen icon here, and the font is in emerald green. Like I mentioned in my previous review of ribbon cinchers, you can somewhat consider it almost like a two-panel pattern, because this panel here and this panel here create most of the curve, and the center front, middle, and center back are pretty much always just perfectly straight. But in another sense, you might be able to consider this, for instance, a 14-panel pattern, where these are all panel pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and these are all panel pieces as well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Because the way that these are angled and they're wrapping around the body mostly horizontally, they create a kind of shaping, and they have a certain type of flexibility, the way that these can sort of shift and overlap more or less with one another. So that shapes the body in a way that's kind of unique that you can't always achieve with a traditional like vertical panel pattern. So if I just kind of fluff up these panel pieces right here and sort of stretch out the corset, you can see that the shortest panel pieces are right here at the waistline. So those shortest pieces have the smallest circumference when wrapped around the body, so that's where you get the waist reduction. And each successive panel piece is a little bit longer to give you more room at the rib cage and gradually more room around the hips as well. And because it's a single layer, the construction is fairly straightforward as well. The only thing that is really noteworthy is that in the center front, the side seam, and the center back, where you have the couture pieces, these are where all the bones are held. So in this sort of side front area and side back area, it's quite flexible. And the only places where you need the vertical tension is in the front, side, and back. And ribbon cinchers typically don't have a waist tape. It's not standard to their construction, although some corset makers do add a waist tape if you specifically request one. But if this piece of ribbon right at the waistline was going right through the entire width of the corset from the center front to the center back, that would pretty much function as a waist tape, because then you don't have any weakness at the seams. Like with the other ribbon corset, there's no binding per se, but the vertical panels of the ribbon were deliberately cut a little bit longer so that it could be wrapped around and then stitched on the underside. So
It makes it very smooth here. And giving a peek of the inside of the binding here, compared to the sample, you can see that this is more tidily done. Here's the binding on the Modesty panel as well. So a lot more effort to do it more cleanly. And especially in the center front and center back where you have a curve, this is pretty difficult to do when it comes to a non-stretch ribbon. So there's a boned Modesty panel in the back of this corset, and it's 5.5 inches wide, made from 2 layers of black herringbone couture, and you can see that little vertical piece of silver ribbon picking out in the center right there. It is suspended on the laces, and it has 6 bones in it. So I've loosened the laces a bit so you can see the Modesty panel peeking through. So you can see that if I do have a gap of say 2 or 2.5 inches, then there's one vertical piece of this matching silver ribbon that runs down the center of the Modesty panel, and so it makes it look really smooth and congruous throughout the back of the corset. Additionally, there is a Modesty placket extending out from the knob side of the busk here. It's almost 3/4 of an inch wide, and it's unstiffened, finished in the same black cotton couture on the inside and the silver ribbon on the outside. And one really nice attention to detail was how Ursula was able to mirror match the motif on the ribbon in the center front and also in the center back here. The busk in the front of this corset is 11 inches long, and it has 5 loops and pins. The last 2 are a little bit closer together for more control over the tummy. It's 1/2 inch wide, so it's a standard flexible busk, and it has an additional flat steel bone on either side of the busk as well. It does have a little bit more flexibility than what I'm used to with some busks, and you can see in my profile view when I'm wearing this corset, it does have a little bit of bowing in the front, but I actually find that to be really pretty in a way. So if you do need, for instance, a more rigid busk, if you prefer a more rigid busk, you might be able to request like a heavy duty wide busk in the center front for yours instead. And while I usually prefer more rigid busks in my own corset, for some reason, when in this ribbon cincher, I find that the center front of this corset is comfortable and flattering on me. There's a total of 16 bones in this corset, not including the center front busk and not including the bones in the Modesty panel here. So like I said before, there is a flat steel bone adjacent to the busk, and you can see this very plainly attracts my magnet. There are 4 spiral steel bones, all butted next to each other in the side seam here. You can see this attracts my magnet as well. And in the center back, taking a peek behind the Modesty panel, there are 2 flat steel bones sandwiching the grommets, and there's an additional 1/4 inch wide spiral steel bone right there next to one of those flat steel bones. And yeah, that really plainly attracts my magnet as well. The bones in the Modesty panel are not metal, they're acrylic, but I really don't mind because I have used acrylic in my Modesty panels as well, and it makes it really easy to remove the panel and hand wash it if it gets kind of sweaty or grody, and I don't have to worry about the bones resting. Here's a close-up of the grommets in the back. There are a total of 28 of them, 14 on each side. They are size 0 with a medium flange around them and finished in silver. They are more or less equidistantly spaced, except right at the waistline here, where they're a little bit closer together for ease of cinching, right at where the bunny ears are. And putting the Modesty panel aside so you can see the underside, so nice big washers here. These might be prim eyelets, and you can see that they've all rolled really nicely, no splits in these so they don't catch on the laces, and they're all holding in really nicely. And the laces in the back of this corset are black double-faced satin ribbon, so it's very strong, smooth, and shiny on both sides. No stretch to it whatsoever. It's about 5/8 of an inch wide, so it glides well through the grommets, and it's not too thick or not too narrow. Ribbon can be a little bit on the slippery side, but as long as you know how to tie proper knots and bows and not like a granny bow, you shouldn't have a problem getting the bows to stay closed and not slide open. The black ribbon complements the rest of the ribbon corset really nicely. It's definitely long enough for my purposes, so they do their job. So this concludes my review of the ribbon cincher made by Emerald Queen Art. I hope you enjoyed it and you learned something new. If you did, please remember to click that like button down there as it helps support this channel. If you have any comments or questions about this corset or Emerald Queen Art in general, feel free to leave your questions down below and I would be happy to answer you. Or if I don't know the answer, I'd be happy to pass your questions on to Ursula.
And this corset was voted on and funded by my patrons on Patreon, so thank you all so much. If you would like to learn more about my Patreon and learn how you can vote on which corsets I review in the future or what video topics I talk about in the future, I will put a link in the description down below and also on the screen here. And once again, thank you all for watching to the end, and I will see you all next week for another video. Bye.